G'day everyone, and welcome to another weekly episode of What's Up Mate, a podcast by an Aussie Sparky and Fridgie for Aussie Sparkies and Fridgies and those aspiring to be. You're with your host Jake Sparrow from Sparrow Electrical and Refrigeration. I hope you've all had a productive week on the tools or at trade school, wherever you were. I'm sure you were kicking some goals. In this episode, I'm going to chat about your attitude and how it directly affects your opportunities, not only in your career but in your life too. Also, we'll chat about life experiences and the detrimental or positive outcomes that can occur from them depending on how you navigate through the challenge. You might be wondering what a tradesman knows about this topic. Surely he's not a qualified psychologist. You're right, and I'm not. However, I have lived experience which we will touch on towards the end of the episode. First, let's have a chat about your attitude and what the client sees. From the minute you answer your phone to the time you send your invoice and every step in between, when you're at work, you are leaving an impression with your client. Your client has called you because you're the pro and they have an issue they would like fixed, whether it's a fault with their wiring, cool room, freeze room, or air conditioning, or perhaps they need you to install some equipment, or even something as simple as a light. Whatever you trade, you need to bring your best for your sake, your company's sake, and also your client's sake. The moment you make contact with your client, if it is in a negative manner, perhaps your tone of voice, body language on site, down to even the way your work vehicle is presented, you're setting the tone for the rest of that transaction. Your client, no matter how much of an appealing job you do or how neat your works are, the chances of getting a callback will be slim, as your client will not want to engage someone who was grumpy, late with no communication, or even rude. You may not even win the quote you have submitted, all because of your attitude. So you've basically wasted minutes or even hours of your time quoting because you couldn't present yourself in a professional manner. The moment your client is put off by your attitude, appearance, not that you should be judged on your physical appearance, however, humans are generally quite shallow and often fail to see through this, lack of communication or cleanliness whilst working, leaving yourself and your business open to a minefield. You'll likely get follow-ups such as, the worker you sent to my site was untidy and we are not willing to pay the full bill. They'll start to question hours on site, saying things such as they spent too much time on their phones. Although we all see our phones as a tool, whether it is for calculations, looking at pictures of expected works, or even wiring or piping schematics, the clients, because they have been tainted by a poor attitude, will straight away think that you are not being productive on the site and they'll want a discount. You might think, well, as a technician, this isn't really my issue. The boss or the office staff will sort it out and I'll move on to my next job. In fact, you're wrong. Your poor attitude has led to an unhappy client who will likely spread the word saying, don't use this company for whatever reason it may be. So you've lost that client forever, but also their friends and family, and they might even go to social media. So that's a pretty big audience nowadays. So that's a very poor review for your company. So any recommendations or suggestions you've made to the client have also fallen on deaf ears because you've already lost the client. So let's say you've recommended that the switchboard needs attention. Maybe perhaps you might want to put them onto a maintenance schedule for their air conditioning or their cool rooms. They've already dismissed all of what you said because you didn't come across in a professional manner. Also, another issue is your poor attitude has probably led to your office staff or your boss being taken away from other tasks such as quoting future works, scheduling, ordering materials, or even time with the family on their weekends or after normal working hours. Basically, you said to your boss, I only care about myself and couldn't care about others' time. Now, has this impacted your job security, career progression, and even your livelihood or financial goals? You betcha. You're unlikely to get the next pay rise. You're more likely to be sent to the lower profile jobs, as your boss doesn't want to risk you mingling with their existing high profile clients. Do you want a supervisor role or even a leading hand job? Guess what? You won't be the right candidate for the job unless you can get your attitude sorted. So, how does poor attitude affect your workmates? Have you ever walked into a wholesaler and you ask the person behind the desk how their day is going and they look at you and say something with very little enthusiasm like, could be better, should have stayed in bed, or I'm alright? What happens to your energy? It automatically will match theirs. If you're not trying to make a conscious decision to be positive, it can be very hard to pull yourself out of this rut after that small little transaction or that communication with that person. So now let's take the same scenario and you walk in and they greet you with a smile and say with a heap of enthusiasm like, "Hey mate, how can I help you today?" Or, "Hey Josh, how's your day going mate?" Or, "Hey Kieran, good to see you, what's new?" You instantly engage and change them about something positive, and you're left leaving and feeling a bit happier, and you've had a positive experience with that supplier. So it's no different to your clients, your workmates. The same thing happens. So they've rubbed off on you. Your workmates will match your energy at work. It's a no-brainer. So if it's negative, this will have large effects on your productivity as a team, as well as their willingness to even show up at work. If your workplace is a miserable spot to work, your sick days will skyrocket and your team will be unlikely to go that extra mile for you as an employee or an employer. However, if your team culture is great, you can guarantee there will be smiles all around. Workmates helping each other to be more productive, and your sick days will reduce significantly. And guess what? If your team are positive and happy around your clients, you'll have a client for life. We all have bad days. However, it is not up to others to walk on eggshells because something in your personal life has put you in a bad mood. I'd personally recommend having a chat to your workmates if something's happened at home and it is affecting you at work. You'll find they probably will want to actually support you, and they'll be more understanding towards you and how you're feeling for that day or that week, however long this issue is affecting you. And you know what? They might even have lived through something similar, and they could possibly have some words of wisdom, which might help you pull you through what you're going through and get you back on track to a positive mindset. A positive attitude, clean work uniform, and a clean work van will hold you in high regards amongst your peers, your clients, and your employer, which will only ever lead to good things. Now, let's look at a personal level on your attitude and how it's going to affect your life. We've touched based on obviously the attitude at work and the contributing factor to your personal life being money. But there's much more to life than money. Money just helps you. Positive relationships with your birth family, married family, partner and kids is one of the most important aspects. However, it is not the most important. Your health is the most important because you're unable to have any beneficial relationship with anyone if your health is suffering. Perhaps you've got pain, so you find yourself with a short fuse and you aren't managing the pain. Guess what? Your family is suffering too because you're snapping at the kids when they're just being kids, or when your partner wants to talk to you, but you also snap at them. Perhaps you're in pain and your way of managing it is through alcohol. You drink to numb the pain, but you're also numbing any relationship you have with anyone in your life, friends, family, and colleagues. Maybe your drinking is affecting your ability to even drive your kids to sport safely. Perhaps your drinking is costing your family financially and causing harm this way. Perhaps you're stressed at work and you find yourself taking out the stress on those you love the most because, let's face it, these safe people. But guess what? They will not put up with it forever. You're working long hours in an attempt to provide for your family. Guess what? Your kids don't lay in bed at night thinking that mum or dad are working so we can have money. They lay awake in bed thinking, when is mum or dad getting home? I never see them. And little people always turn the blame back onto themselves. They will think that they aren't home because of me. They're at work so much because I want the newest PlayStation or Xbox, or perhaps they want that new motocross bike. All of this can be changed by starting a conversation with your family and friends as to why you are behaving poorly and what you're going to do to fix it. But make sure you're actually going to action what you speak about, otherwise they'll just label you as a liar and it's hard to come back from that. Now, a little bit about me and why I feel so passionately about what I'm talking about is, well, I'm a father of 3 kids, a husband, a business owner, an electrician, a refrigeration tech, a firefighter, a trainer, and also a trauma sufferer. I was blessed to have met my wife, Kerry, who had already had a little family of her own. From that, we had another 2 kids. However, during the summer of 2019 and 2020, Australia was on fire. I was being pulled in so many directions between the workload with our electrical and refrigeration business, trying to keep humans cool and food cold during that large heat wave. But I was also being pulled in the direction of the firefighting doing my bit to help the community and native fauna and flora. There was nothing left of me to give to my family. I was burnt out. During a large event on a fireground on the 3rd of January 2020 on Kangaroo Island, my life changed and changed forever. I suffered burns to my airways, I suffered smoke inhalation, I suffered from watching human and animal pain, suffering and death. I suffered from seeing people at their worst, and I suffered watching our government providing what they seemed to think was their best, when in fact it was a dismal effort to a huge natural disaster, poorly managed Australia-wide. I suffered from the thought of not making it out of our situation alive, and having the guilt of the last month over Christmas ignoring my family, over what I thought to be, at the time, to be more important things, such as work, money, and firefighting. I suffered the thought of my wife Kerry needing to raise our kids by herself because I wasn't going to get out alive, or at least in a state of physical health that I would be of any use to raise the kids. To this day, I still suffer from these things: poor lung capacity and function affecting physical fitness from prolonged smoke inhalation and lack of care after the fires. I suffer from lack of sleep some nights due to flashbacks of events that I saw or witnessed. I suffer in some public settings where certain noises or smells send shivers down my spine. I get angry at events, past and present, and how certain agencies keep making the same mistakes over and over again with little to no ramifications. But the worst thing I suffered from after the fact was the disconnection with my family, but also myself. I went off as a firefighter to help others, and I came back different. There's no other way to put it, but I returned a different person. Someone who I was not proud of later, being diagnosed with PTSD. I was wearing the label of PTSD as a badge of honour and letting it ruin my life. My relationship with my wife was non-existent. It's okay, it's because of the PTSD. People will understand. I was always angry with the kids. Guess what? Blamed it on the PTSD. I let the business struggle financially. Blamed it on the PTSD. In a way, I was angry I survived, as dying where I was physically injured and mentally incapacitated sounded a hell of a lot easier than where I was a year on down the track with seemingly nothing going right. It wasn't until I went away with an organisation called Trojan's Trek, a mob who help veterans and now first responders with their mental health journeys, that I really realised that this was a huge problem, and that if I didn't do something soon, I was going to lose everything I worked tirelessly to achieve before the age of 30 years old. I learnt that this badge of honour I was wearing was just a front for a scared man, and it was just an easy thing to blame for my underperformance as a father, husband, and business owner. There were so many takeaway lessons from the program that were brilliant, and the week away our bush with the group was breathtaking, with a lot of time for self-reflection. During the self-reflection process, I figured that I spent 28 years getting to know myself before the incident on the 3rd of January, and I was now no longer that person. I had changed from what I knew about myself previously, and I had to relearn the new Jake, and that's what scared me the most. Since then, I've figured out that it's not other people's responsibility to avoid my triggers. It's also not their responsibility for my happiness. And however, I'm also not responsible for theirs either. A big learning I took away was, between stimulus and response, there is a space. And I really needed to work on making that space large enough for my wild and emotional thoughts. I was fortunate enough to be asked to return to Trojan's Trek, firstly as a mentor in the Flinders Ranges, as the staff had identified me as a candidate due to positive personal change. I was then asked to travel to Central Queensland as a facilitator for lessons for others struggling with their mental health, where I was lucky enough to positively impact the life of others struggling through similar issues as myself. Fast forward to today, I have distanced myself from toxic people I used to have in my life, stopped drinking. I've identified when I need to distance myself from work or other mentally draining activities. I was rejected time and time again from a position as a career firefighter due to pre-existing medical and mental health issues stemming from, ironically, firefighting, which everyone I know have said, you must be really mad about that. No, in a way, I'm actually glad I was never employed in that role within an organisation who most of their employees, past and present, would have the same conditions that I was suffering from. Perhaps they don't care about their employees, or perhaps if they actually knew, they would no longer be employed. Who knows? I've identified the positives in my life and focus on that. And when I find myself falling back into the rut, I've got a little book full of methods to help me pull myself back out, taking the onus off of my family and my friends. Seeking help initially, acting on my learnings, and seeking positive change for my life enabled me to continue having a relationship with my wife and kids and keep our business going. So now, instead of dwelling on issues, I act quickly, asking for advice, ask freely for help, and I also offer up help and advice to whoever asks for it. I'd hate to think where I might be if I didn't ask for help when I did, but I believe I probably wouldn't be with you all anymore if my life continued the way it was going. Mental health is such a huge movement currently, and I hope that if you're ever feeling alone or in a spot of bother, you can put your ego aside and reach out to one of your mates, colleagues, or even some of the available services such as Beyond Blue, Lifeline, TAX, which is short for This Is a Conversation Starter, Mates in Constructions, and one called The Next Step Australia. Sorry, this one was a little bit heavy, guys and girls. Super important to obviously reflect on your attitude at work and also at home, and also reach out if you are struggling with your mental health or even your physical health. This has been another episode of What's Up, Mate, touching on attitude and mental health issues affecting Aussie tradies.